And welcome to the Mission 68 broadcast where we serve justice, love mercy.
And walk humbly.
Yes, we do. I'm Brady Labe, and I'm joined today by my co host, Jackson Parnell. Say hi, Jackson.
Hello, everybody.
How's everybody doing today? It's currently Friday, the 25th of October. Halloween's coming up soon, so I hope that y'all are excited, assuming you celebrate Halloween. We got a few stories lined up for today, a few environmental stories. First of all, we're covering some stuff that we kind of talked about a little bit before on the show, but it's going on a little bit further. It's the some tax credits that the Fed is doing for certain hydrogen plants or energy production plants, and then we're going on to FEMA, a little bit of what's going on with FEMA in Florida and some, specifically southern Florida, some issues that some local residents have been having with some of the rules around FEMA and insurance. And then we're going to finish off with an article from The Hill, kind of their take on Trump and Harris's climate policy going forward and how each of them are responding to or have responded to previously the environment and climate disaster that's currently going on. But of course, like we always do, we're going to start with the Micah 6.8 mission so that we can make sure we're all caught up on the community side of things. So this Sunday, October 27th, is going to be the somatic-based workshop, Finding Balance in a Chaotic World. It's from 4 to 5 p.m. on Zoom. I don't know exactly how to sign up for it, so I'm going to look into that probably today or tomorrow and edit this and put a link to it in the description. So if you're listening on the radio, go ahead and jump to our YouTube channel where we'll have the description for you so you can go sign up to the Zoom link. If it's anything, I think that's the mental health stuff that we do, if it's the somatic workshop. So yeah, I think this is the stuff we do. We bring in kind of like a professional lady who helps you meditate and do other very nice things. And then the next Sunday, November 3rd, from 2 to 4 p.m., that's our community giveaway at the Village Coffee House like we normally do it. And then the same week, November 7th, on a Thursday from 6 to 7, is our Community Voices meeting at the Calcasieu Parish Public Library. And then today, on our particulate matter reading for our air quality, we're at an 18, which is anywhere between a 0 and a 50 is considered good. It's the green, so that's good news. And we're going to go ahead and jump into some of our environmental related stories today, starting off with our tax credits. So essentially, and we've talked about this a little bit before, but the Treasury Department is finalizing some rules governing some clean energy stuff for hydrogen. What's happening is that about 18 tax credits that were created by the Inflation Reduction Act are kind of being like refined and finished. They're buffing out exactly what all the criteria will be and exactly what the companies will need to adhere to receive the tax credits. But at the end of the day, essentially, it is a incentive. Would that be the right way to talk about it? An
Um,
incentive towards businesses to.
yeah, that's essential. It's like a sort of a middle ground between a incentive and like a government subsidy, I'd say.
Yeah,
Pretty good.
yeah, because it's do you want to maybe briefly explain what a tax credit is to maybe some of those?
Yeah, I guess like the simplest way to describe it is basically um what a tax credit is. It's like a financial assistance of some sort. Usually it's just like a straight government funding of some kind to a business if their business practices meet the criteria to be granted that tax credit.
Yeah, and it is naturally tax free because it's from the
Yeah, because
federal
it's
government.
yeah.
Yeah, so that means that some of the clean energy, or I think most businesses in the energy sector will have it, not just hydrogen. Um, they will be pushed to kind of like implement solar panels,
Mm.
try to cut emissions, try to, especially ones that heavily rely or do create a lot of emissions, will try to maybe do all day how much they can do on solar panels, and then maybe they'll do carbon emission at night. They're just trying to slowly implement into a less and less carbon emissions. So something that was interesting that I saw, where it is specifically mentioned that Democrats in office right now were saying that they are apprehensive to really crack down on some of the carbon emission rules, because if it is a little bit too much of an iron fist, I think they worry that it would kind of go into the opposite direction where it may actually increase carbon emissions because of maybe it's really difficult to meet those criteria or
Mm,
expectations and still, function. Um,
yeah. Uh, Personally, I'm not really too worried about it. The member of the Treasury Department that was interviewed in the article, he was apparently emphasized heavily during the interview that they found a really nice middle ground for a lot of the credits.
okay, that's good. So not something really too much to worry about. Overall, um, we like to see stuff like this because if there are being tax credits going towards this type of stuff, it means that the government is at least doing something. It's not completely disregarding this issue as a non-issue or perpetuating it. Um, so definitely a thumbs up in our book. But I think that's about it on the tax credits. So we're gonna go ahead and move into the FEMA story. So after some of the rebuild from Hurricane Milton, uh, an issue has come up that apparently has also come up in the past before in, I believe it's southern Florida. So that's mostly like the Tampa Bay area. Am I
Yeah,
correct?
Tampa and below, yeah.
Tampa and below. So there's a rule in Southwest Florida called the 50% rule. And essentially, what that means is that any damage caused by flooding, I think
Yeah, it's specifically flooding.
specifically flooding, if it creates damage that's at least half of the value of the home, not the land surrounding it, but the
Yeah,
home,
specifically the structure.
specifically the structure. If it does more than half of its value, then the building is required to be built how much higher? A
According to
hundred.
a 100-year flood elevation plan.
Okay, so it's not a specific metric. So it is required, but it's not required by the insurance, or FEMA doesn't have to cover it. So if you do get your house flooded in Florida, I mean this sounds good in theory because you don't want your house to get flooded again. If it's built higher, the only problem is I don't know that many people who have $500,000 lying around
To build a new
to
elevated
build
house.
to completely essentially renovate their home and to build it higher. And it's something that FEMA is not going to pull out of their emergency fund to pay for it, and the insurance companies are not going to do that either. So there's been some issues in Southern Florida regarding that, which I mean I'm not surprised because this just goes to show, I feel, that as climate issues start to exacerbate more and more, we're going to start seeing more little things like this where it's like, yeah, normally houses aren't going to flood because it's a 1 in 100 year flood type of thing. So this type of issue with this kind of rule would only happen once in 100 years. But if we're going to start seeing more frequent, more violent historical storms, then we're
Hmm.
going to start seeing more of these kinds of problems arise naturally.
Uh, I also feel that like this story in particular, especially the later half of the article, like very well, very excellently highlights the uh connection between feeling the impacts of climate change and your class, your financial class,
Yes.
because the article had mentioned that in several cases in the past, what has happened to lower income neighborhoods when faced with the 50% rule is most of the homeowners that could not afford to renovate just straight up have to leave and move, and their neighborhoods are being replaced uh, essentially from the ground up by just wealthier and wealthier people moving in that can actually afford these renovations. So it's just uh it was one of the last lines of the article I'd mentioned that uh the southern half of Florida is just going to be it's slowly going to get richer and richer. There's going to be more and more robust homes, but that's kind
Yeah.
of a problem for working class individuals that live in Florida. I feel like it's quite literally an example of how it's only a matter of time until this climate problem cannot be like adequately handled.
Yeah, it's kind of like the concept like brain drain, where like like smart people go to like urban places, so rural places don't have like doctors and stuff. It's like the opposite. It's like poor people can't afford homes, and like
Yeah,
whenever your freaking house is like a pin in a bowling alley and it just keeps getting freaking knocked over, you can't keep rebuilding it, so you just move. It's just gonna be only rich people in Tampa.
yeah. Only people that can afford to build hurricane-proof houses are going to live in
Yeah,
100% flood probability zones.
that's gonna be wild. But yeah, no, certainly a story for with its in between the lines of class consciousness, where we need to pay attention to, the working class, which is the majority, overwhelming 90% of America. But before we get a little bit too heated on that, we're going to jump into our last story, where we will preface before we go into it, because it is a presidential article, which is heated.
Two
Um,
weeks.
2 weeks until it is. Of course, Micah 6-8 does not take any positions on politicians, specific politicians. Me and Jackson do, but that's Jackson and I, and it's our personal opinions. And I'm going to reiterate that. You can believe whatever you would like, and I will mention this before because it's something that we talked about at the meeting. We we understand and we appreciate bipartisanship because we can join together under similar issues that we recognize. But on this show, we will be mentioning some opinions that are, again, Jackson and I's, mine and Jackson opinion. They are not Micah 6-8's opinions. So keep that in mind going forward. We will try to first briefly give as an objective of a recap about both parties, as according to the article, as we will be able to, but there will inevitably be some bias here. So let's go ahead and get into that. So this is again a more of like an analysis, or not even an analysis really, just a blatant, like, a kind of informative, what exactly has Trump and Harris done in the past regarding climate, and what are their policies going to in the future, um, which is really important because this is, our biggest issue for Micah 6-8, and these are who going to be one of them is going to be the president of the United States. So I think we should start with Trump. That's where the article starts. Um, so yeah, you want to just go into his first term and read that quote there?
Me too.
I mean, no, I can do it. So Trump, during his first, I'm reading this straight from the article, during his first term in the Oval Office, Trump rolled back more than 100 environmental rules, including Obama era climate rules for power plants and cars. He also withdrew from the U.S. from the Global Paris Climate Agreement. In addition, he reduced protections for the nation's waters, including some chemicals, from safety reviews, and limited safety protections at chemical plants and offshore oil rigs. All right. Um, so yeah, in his first term, and I mean this has already happened, and Harris hasn't been the president yet, but Trump certainly, I would say, just almost from a blatantly objective perspective, has not been an environmentalist. Um,
Not environmentally conscious in his
yeah, and
policy.
certainly through his policy, and through his, I mean, some of his like blatantly stated facts, or like his opinions that he's blatantly stated before, where he has called climate change a hoax. Um, as of
Call it a money making
Yeah,
industry, I believe
a
was.
China's money making industry. Um, and he pulled out of the one of the biggest, the Paris climate agreement, which
climate
is
agreement. Yeah.
one of the large, like that set us back pretty far, I would say, climate wise, along with rolling back some Obama, like you said, Obama era rules. Um, I mean, I'm assuming that was to free up some business regulation. Uh, Naturally, as most environmental regulation has to do with reducing emissions from businesses. Um, but that was just specifically covering his 2016 term. So of course there might be some changes going into his next one that we're going to cover. I wouldn't count on it a whole lot, but of course the Biden Harris uh, what not campaign Biden administration so
Yeah.
far. We've spoken about this a lot. Me and Jackson are pretty familiar with the Inflation Reduction Act by now, but it's kind of like Biden's baby in terms of environmental progress. It's been billions of dollars in tax credits for renewable energy, so it has been very large. Of course, we know that it's created thousands of jobs in climate. So far, Biden has been a pretty economically, or not economically, a pretty environmentally conscious president. I wouldn't say the best, because I don't want to make him
Yeah.
sound too good, because he didn't go so far.
Right. What we should, I guess, we should heavily emphasize it whenever we say that the policies have been good. It is relative to other presidents' actions
Yes,
on the
it's good
environment.
for how bad we've been doing. It's like in the right. It is, even if it's very marginal, it's in the correct direction. So we'll give.
One of my favorite metaphors is would you prefer getting shot 6 times or twice?
Yeah. So instead, Biden will shoot us twice, or has shot us twice, at least in comparison to Trump's 2016 term. He has been way, I would say on paper, he has been better for the environment. Of course, you can take me up on that. And we rejoined the Paris Agreement, which we set goals, and we've talked about this before as well, to cut U.S. emissions to half by 2030. That's their current campaign, their current administration's goals. So Trump, in this upcoming election, first of all, he's claimed that he's going to want to get rid of some of Biden administration regulations on power plants and electric cars. And he wants to exit at least according to this article, it seems like he wants to exit the Paris Agreement again,
Hmm.
which is not, that's just not the direction we need to go if we're trying to cut emissions and try to fix the climate problem. And he also wants to get rid of and revoke the unspent money from the Inflation Reduction Act. It seems like a few people from Trump's campaign have made some comments on this, that they would.
Even the article, the first one we had covered, had mentioned briefly that a majority, if not all, of the tax credits that were being rolled out by the Treasury Department are most likely going to be completely off the table given a second Trump term.
Okay, dang. That article mentioned that. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
it was like a single sentence somewhere.
Okay, wow. Yeah, so they will not. Trump will not be in favor of the aforementioned tax credits. Um, yeah, he did. It does say that he was pro nuclear energy. I don't know if you read that. Um,
Yeah, that's one of the
yeah,
few
Trump
things
would.
he advocates for.
Yeah, so he
He
has made a
also has
change.
slightly warmed up to the idea of electric vehicles ever since his campaign's been subsidized by Elon Musk.
Yeah. Hmm. A little. Oh yeah. Look, it literally says it. However, Trump has also cozied up to. It literally says it in the article. However, Trump has also cozied up to billionaire Tesla owner Elon Musk, whom he says will have a role in his administration. And Trump has said he's for electric cars because of Musk's endorsement. So at least in comparison to 2016, he's probably more environmentally friendly now. But I think that's just like the 6 gunshots versus the 2 gunshot thing. again?
Well, I think maybe, but it also might just be, at least in my opinion, it is any sort of positive things, any sort of slight changes from his very pro fossil fuel industry stances in 2016. I feel like most of the changes that he's made are to distance himself from the stated goals of uh, essentially dissolving most of our environmental regulation agencies
Mm,
in Project 2025.
yeah. Yeah, no, I would agree with that. But to move on into Biden Harris, well, this says Biden Harris policies, but I think this is specifically referring to Harris's campaign promises. Oh no, here it is. Harris's campaign promises. So she doesn't really have like very specific policy on environmental issues, and I mean I think that's mostly because I feel as though the um, Harris campaign is kind of just a rebrand of the Biden campaign. So I would expect similar policy to. I would expect Harris fully to continue exactly what Biden is doing.
But
Probably.
at the same time, though, she's kind of doing a. We mentioned it before and long ago in a previous episode. Strategic ambiguity of her
Yeah.
policies.
Hmm.
She hasn't exactly laid out in any clear terms what, if any, changes she has plans to do from Biden's stances on any sort of environmental or energy regulation. The only thing that she has, or that I would say of note, is in her bid for the nomination in 2019. She had stated one of her policies would be a complete ban on fracking,
Yeah, I
and
was about
she
to
has
mention that
rolled
one.
that back. Yeah,
That's yeah.
and
So I mean, we're gonna tear into Harris too here. We're not only not Trump supporters, but when we see, I mean, what the heck, man? Like, and this is obviously just like if you're going to be ambiguous about your environmental policy and also roll back your that you claim that you want to ban fracking right before the election, where Pennsylvania has a lot of its economy is based around fracking. I mean, it's just to play to a more moderate like standpoint to get more votes for the election, which I don't want to see that from my politician, and I definitely don't want to. I definitely don't want to vote for a politician that wants to is drill baby drill. Let's keep going. Like I mean, there's just not as much difference between the Republican and Democrat Party as maybe some would like to see. Um, but I think that pretty much sums it up for kind of like their policy
mhm.
going forward on it. So I don't think we have anything else in store today, and we're kind of getting a little close to time anyway. I don't want to start on something that might last a little bit too long. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up today, unless there's something else you want to mention, Jackson.
No, I think we're good.
No? All right. I hope you guys have a good Friday, and we will see you back on the show on Monday. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.